In September of 1919, my grandfather was born in a one-room homestead in northeast Wyoming. It was a hard life from all the stories I heard growing up. They used kerosene lamps at night. Wood and coal were their energy sources. As tough as life was, life got even tougher during the Great Depression. To hear my family tell it, the only real bright spot in those days was the hope that electricity would come because of the signing of the REA in 1936. They knew that the possibility of having power could transform their lives and the lives of their children. I stand before you today as the recipient of those hopes and dreams. Electricity didn't come immediately. It wasn't until the 1950s, before the line was finally made to my family's ranch, where I live as a fourth-generation rancher. Through those years, their hope and so much of the work they did made sure the power arrived, never dimmed. Where I live, you can see a long way off into the horizon. My grandparents and parents could see the lights burning brightly in the city where electricity was commonplace. But they knew that they wouldn't be left out because they refused to be left out. It was that kind of toughness and the commitments they made to themselves, their families, and each other that led to the creation of cooperatives. These values carried on and were passed down to me and my generation. When I was in Washington, D.C. last summer during the Electric Cooperative Youth Tour, after the Depression, my grandfather was drafted into the United States Army. He served in the European theater and was captured by the Germans in 1944. He spent 8 months as a prisoner of war. He told me that after he was taken prisoner, he was taken to the Nazi camp in a cattle car. That story came alive for me during our trip to the Holocaust Museum. I saw on display an old cattle car that used to transport Jews to concentration camps. This was a humbling experience for me because it made me appreciate my grandfather's service, the service of other men and women, and the horrible conditions he endured. I was still thinking about him when we arrived at the World War II Memorial. I thought of all the sacrifices that so many men had to make on the battlefield, but at home as well. Everybody had a part in that war. My gratitude increased even more after seeing the wall of gold stars, which represented soldiers who did not come home. On the west side of the World War II Memorial, you will see the Freedom Wall with a view of the reflecting pool and the Lincoln Memorial behind it. The wall has 4,048 gold stars, each representing 100 Americans who died in the war. In front of the wall lies the message, "Here we mark the price of freedom." Upon reflection of that day's events and looking forward to going to Capitol Hill to meet my congressional delegation, something hit me. We spend too much time worrying about our political parties, of our elected officials. Today, partisanship and mean-spirited rhetoric divide Washington and limit the work that needs to be done for the good of the American people. Here's a question I have. Why does it take tragedy to unite us? After the attacks of 9/11, we came together as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans. We came together in mourning last year as Representative Gabrielle Giffords was shot outside a Tucson, Arizona Safeway. Thank goodness she is recovering well. But 6 others lost their lives, including a young girl who happened to be born on September 11th, 2001. That young girl, Christina Taylor Green, went to that store on that fateful morning to meet her congressperson. That really hit home for me because an important element of the youth tour is having the opportunity to meet your elected officials, to make your voice heard. All that young girl wanted was that chance. But there is hope. When Americans come together, there is no Republican or Democrat. We are not a country of black or white, Asian or Hispanic. We are a united country. When Americans come together for the common good, there is no stopping us. When I look out into this audience or see my fellow Youth Leadership Council members on stage, I see thousands of electric co-op leaders. I don't see individual states. I don't see political parties. I see one united electric cooperative family. It is that unity, that strength of purpose, which drives our strength of service. All this brings me back to my grandfather. He passed away last year at the age of 92. I know he experienced phenomenal changes during his lifetime, from horse-drawn wagons and kerosene lamps to satellite television and internet access. My generation has probably already seen as many changes in our short lives as he did in his long one. And we are going to see more. But if the Youth Tour and Youth Leadership Council experience taught us anything, it taught us the power of standing together, the privilege of helping someone else, and the joy of sharing our experiences. These are the values that we learned from our cooperatives on the Youth Tour. It means that we have a responsibility to show others the way. You gave us a strong foundation. All that's really left for us is to continue to build upon that foundation. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Powder River Energy and CEO Mike Easley. Thank you also to Sean Taylor and Tammy Ramza at the Wyoming Rural Electric Association for selecting me to represent the great state of Wyoming. Thank you to Glenn English and the NRECA for giving us this honor of serving on the Youth Leadership Council. Finally, I would like to thank the person whose strength and spirit drove me, my grandfather. I love you and I miss you. Thank you.